Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Good morning, Britt. Welcome. How is your sugar freedom going? Hello, Mira. Glad to have you. Please say hello if you would like in the chat if you're new or returning. And Happy New Year. Already 1 week in today. Can you believe it? Is it still feeling like a new year, or has everybody forgotten already? Welcome, Tam from Minnesota. April, it's been quite a while. Glad to have you here in 2026. Tanya, welcome. Wow, you were sugar-free 2.5 years. Amazing. So this is definitely for you and anyone else who, is drawn to the topic sugar freedom. And we're going to dive really deep into this. Amazing, Britt. 9 days sugar-free for 30 minutes before your work meeting. Awesome. So glad to have you as always. And April. Wonderful. Sorry you had the flu. Yeah, that's great. And sometimes that happens. We have a reset when we're sick and, or even traveling. I know I traveled recently and I didn't eat sugar, but I didn't have the greatest diet. And so when I came back, a few weeks ago, I reset my own self in the ways that I needed to as well. So we're going to dive into all of this, and I just want to give, a few minutes for people to join in, have our collective energy come together. Again, if you are new, I know many of you already, so wonderful to have all of you here. If you care to introduce yourself, you can give an emoji if you don't want to speak, if that feels helpful, or even just one word of how you're feeling today, what's alive for you in your body and your mind. I'm a spiritual life coach and Reiki master teacher. I do help people with both what I call the goal line and the soul line goals of life. So we all have things that we want externally, and we all want those things because we want to feel a certain way internally. And so my coaching combines both the inner work and the outer work. And really the inner work is where the gold is, because our inner reality creates our external reality. So that is the work I do with my one-on-one coaching clients. So I help people, in those areas, as well as specifically in the sugar category as well. I'm not exclusive to that. And it's such an issue, even if I work with somebody and they come for some other reason, oftentimes it will happen that sugar or diet will come up and become a part of the coaching. And then also I have people that come as that's their primary reason for wanting coaching with me. So, I've had it been all of those ways. So, in my own journey, for those who don't know, I've been in 12-step recovery. My primary program, if you will, is being alcohol and drug free. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And in a few weeks, it will be, I can't believe it, 27 years. So, just to qualify that I'm no stranger to addiction. And for me, my story was that, I got clean and sober. I smoked cigarettes, well, not of course, but of course. I quit cigarettes in 2001, and that's when the sugar started, and that's when the food started. Hi, Kel. Welcome. So, really since 2001 has been a very up and down journey for me as far as having sugar in and out of my life. And it's been in and out and in and out. For me, given my personality, a background of addiction, I see myself as a sugar addict. And so this is what I want to help you all with today, is this, because everybody's not going to be addicted to sugar, and that's fine. You can still get something out of it. The distinction is, if you think about your own self in your own life and you're like, I can't have it, I've realized it, I've tried to moderate, I've tried to control, I always come back to a point of this is out of control again, then you might have an issue that, you might not call yourself an addict, but being able to not manage or control your sugar use, that word can just be helpful to give a context. And if that word does apply to you, then what that would mean is you can't safely have sugar in any form at all. So there's going to be two camps of people here. And, one is, oh my God, I know, like I've tried it a million times. I've tried to have it in my life in different ways, and I always end up in the same place. I always end up back to square one. And I know, like, I've tried to moderate it. I've tried to do all of the different things, and that doesn't work. Some of you might be in a camp of, it's a minor issue. It doesn't keep me awake at night. I don't have health problems because of it, but I just don't like, my relationship with it. It gets a little bit excessive at times. And those of you that are in that category, you might be either like, I'll just give it up and it wouldn't be so difficult for you. Or some of you may actually be able to moderate. And if you can, that's great for you. And honestly, I would be a little jealous because I cannot moderate or control my sugar usage. Can anybody else relate to that? So this talk is not to give you information on how to moderate, because I don't know how to do that. So this talk is to help you distinguish and think about which camp are you in. And if you are in the camp of, I know I can't just have one. I've tried over and over again. I think I'm coming to the conclusion, or I'm long past coming to the conclusion, that I just can't have it in my life in a moderate way. So that's, what I can speak to. And for those of you who are in between, you're like, I don't know, then I can definitely help you with figuring that out. Hi, Siobhan. Welcome back. Welcome again. So, does that all make sense? So I'd like for you all to, share, again, a word, an emoji, or more than that, of like, I know a couple of you have already shared where you're at in your journey. So I can get a sense of, who all is here and what you're thinking and which camp you might be in. And I do want to say, like, scientifically and physiologically, sugar as we know it in its refined form is a drug in the body. So I have followed and incorporated something called Bright Line Eating by Susan Pierce Thompson. And it's a very strict eating and food plan for those of people who need that. I don't do it 100%. I use some of the principles, but she's a scientist. And one thing in her book that I loved was she talked about things in their raw form. So if you think about a wheat plant, if you think about a sugarcane plant, if you think about a cacao tree and a cacao pod, if you think about coca leaves, even if you think about whatever, like a coffee tree, right? Those are or even poppy, opium, right? Opium comes from poppy seeds, I think, something like that. So for all of these things, there's like it's plant-based state, it's natural state. And with all of those things, what humans have done is refined all of that. We've refined, wheat plant all the way to the other extreme is white flour. Sugar cane, white sugar, coca leaves, cocaine, cacao, chocolate, poppy, opium, heroin, whatever. So if you think about sugar, and we could even bring flour into the mix, but I want to keep it simple and we'll just stick with sugar. It makes sense. Like if you have, say you have a sugarcane plant and you chew on the fibers of the sugarcane, yes, you will, receive a hit. If you were to swallow the fibers, that is a mix of like the sugar and the fiber. So that hits differently in the body. When we refine something to the extreme, like sugar, it acts, actually I have heard research that says that sugar acts like cocaine in the brain as far as it hits the same receptors, and then the brain and body get addicted to it. So I'm saying all that to say some of you may be able to moderate and control your sugar use if you haven't crossed a threshold to where your body and mind have become addicted to it. And it's sort of a dangerous game. It's kind of like, or even tobacco, right? You can chew a tobacco leaf, or you can smoke a cigarette. Like, how much more addictive is that method of ingestion? So, and even if you think about like opiates, like the pill form and the medicine now, I've just heard this, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is, or what I've read is, like even people who are not addicts will get addicted to like opiate pain meds if they take enough to a certain point. It's just what happens in the body, or drugs like that. So to me, the white sugar, if you play around with that long enough, it's going to become an addiction for you, just based on physiology. Addiction is, it's not just physiological, it's also got the mental component. So I'm just saying that it's a dangerous game for us to play with the way sugar is nowadays and all of that. So I want to check and see. I saw Tam, living with a sugarholic. Yeah, so how many of you have that situation going on where maybe you're a parent with small children and they eat sugar, or you have a spouse or living with a sugarholic and it's in your face, right? So that might be a dynamic going on for you. You can be sugar-free regardless, and it's not as easy as if you live alone and can control everything that comes into your house. Hi, Beth. Yeah, so that's another thing to look at as well. Is like, what do you bring home if you are able to only buy for yourself and you don't, quote, have to buy sugar for others in your household. So that's a definite challenging scenario that you can overcome and work with. And I never said, I'm over 5 years sugar-free now. So, that's where I'm coming from. And before this sugar sobriety period, I did have a period of 2.5 years, maybe 10 years ago, and then I had 6 months one time. So over, since 2001, since I quit smoking, this has been an up and down journey, hopefully one day at a time now. It's been over 5 years, and, my goal is one day at a time to continue that. And yeah, I can't moderate or control it if it's in the house. And Carol, yes, I have heard that sugar is more addictive than cocaine as well. I believe it. And Siobhan, craving it at night. How many of you get sugar cravings? So that is, again, thinking about it in the terms of addiction. I know for me, if we're going to think about it like that, addiction is progressive, right? So for me, if I think back over the past 25 years or whatever, I can see a progression to where over time, this issue got worse. I was eating more sugar about 15 years ago now. I was hypoglycemic, I was overweight, I had to eat every few hours because of this sugar addiction had created that scenario in my body. And I'm proud to say I'm not hypoglycemic anymore for a very long time because I'm sugar-free. But when I was living in that state, I would have these overwhelming, crippling sugar cravings every night. And although I've known for 25 years pretty much that I had a problem with sugar, and I'm well versed in addiction, because of my history and everything, it was very interesting when I got off of the sugar that I was like, oh my God, it's not natural to have sugar cravings. Looking back, I'm like, well, duh. But how many of you can relate to that? Like, I have these sugar cravings. It's just who I am. It's just part of being a human. No, that's not true. It is not natural to crave sugar every day. I was craving it every night, and the cravings would get worse. And the last time I quit was utter and complete hell with cravings. So just to speak to that, because I had this blind spot that was I just thought it's normal. I didn't realize that eating the sugar was causing the sugar cravings because it was like a withdrawal every night. So how many others of you can relate to having sugar cravings that feel like it's just part of who you are, or just part of life or your diet? Or maybe you are past that and you know that it's connected. So that was such a blessing to learn, like, no, I don't crave sugar anymore. I haven't had any sugar cravings for a very, very long time. So if you are in this place of wanting to give it up, or maybe you're in a place of you quit for a little bit and then you go back and you're kind of stuck you're always feeling like you're craving, you will get over it. That will pass, and you must get through that period. I'm in some different Facebook groups. I was in this group, somebody was talking about quitting alcohol, and they were saying they were on day 5 and how bad it was and the cravings. And, I commented that, my first 5 days of alcohol withdrawal was hell, and the first few months got better and were hell. But I haven't since then craved alcohol. So if you're looking at giving up sugar, if you're to a place where it's bad enough to where you can relate to this whole cycle and everything I'm talking about, likely you will have cravings, and it won't last forever, I promise you that. But you must go through this. It's a process, and that's part of the process, and it sucks. And like for me, I haven't had to go through the process for 5.5 years now, because I went through it once, and then once it was out of my system, then it was done. That doesn't mean I haven't thought about it. So, there's thoughts, there can be obsession, but as far as like physical cravings and withdrawal symptoms, that has not occurred. So, let me know if this is helpful so far. Let me know if you have any questions. So the first distinction is like, do I have a problem with this or not? Can I be honest enough with myself to really determine and distinguish, can I moderate this, or have I proven to myself that I can't? And it's not about a short-term experiment. You want to look at the long term, over years, over time. Have you been able to moderate and control your sugar intake? That will give you clarity. And for some of you, it might be like me, like it wasn't until I got clean and sober and then I quit smoking that then, the addiction went to that. So Carol, for me, I consider that my sugar addiction, and I call it an addiction for myself, and only you can determine that for yourself. The last time I quit was brutal. It was brutal. And there was a period of, I think I quit, I can't remember, it's August or September, five years ago, almost, 6 in 2026. I had some periods where I was trying to quit and then I would relapse. And during those times, like I would have a few days and then it would be these powerful, overwhelming cravings. What I did, this is just what I did. I didn't even plan it. This is just how things unfolded. I do have a blog and Facebook post I wrote about that really dives into, I've mentioned some of it, but like the dynamics of me hopefully finally quitting. If you want that post, send me a message. I can send it to you, share it with you. But what I learned is I was in this cycle before I ended up hopefully quitting. I'd quit for a few days, overwhelming cravings, obsession, compulsive, feeling powerless, like I couldn't not do it. I'd give in, wake up the next day, no more, today's day one, never again, this has to stop. And then the physical cravings would kick in midway through the day, and then I would give into it because it felt too much. But what I realized was I wasn't willing in the moment. I lost my willingness. How many of you can relate to having that? Waking up the next day, today's day one, no more. Or you might say tomorrow, tomorrow's day one. but I would the cravings would come, the obsession would start. I'd start thinking ahead of the exact grocery store aisle where I was going to get my sugar drugs, and my mind would be obsessed on that, and I knew that I was going to give in. So what I noticed is I lost willingness. In the morning, I was so willing. Oh my God, I'm done. Oh, I feel horrible. I hate myself. I hate the way I feel. I'm willing. And then I would lose the willingness. So for me, I see addiction as body, mind, and spirit all together. So the spiritual piece is, I was trying to do it all myself and relying on myself. So I started praying for willingness. And then one day, I swear, I just woke up willing. I mean, I wish that I had a more magical or like concrete formula or something, but I prayed for willingness. I woke up willing. And that day, I decided to do a cleanse, detox. I'd already bought the stuff like a month or so before, and I just woke up and I was like, okay, I feel willing. I'm going to start this cleanse. And I did, it was like a 5-day cleanse. And that helped me reset my body. I wasn't hungry. I don't remember having cravings. So I'm answering your question, Carol, from a few minutes ago. This was just my journey. Before that point, when I was kind of bouncing back and forth, the cravings were crippling and overwhelming. Once I did this sort of reset, I don't honestly remember having cravings after that. So we all have our own path and our own journey. I'm not saying this is the only absolute right way. This is my path. So I do eat fruit. I get that question a lot. So there is a susceptibility quiz I can send you. Again, if you send me a private message, follow me here, follow me Facebook, Instagram, check my website, follow me on YouTube. I'm live streaming this over there right now, and you can reach out through any of those channels. And I can send you a susceptibility quiz that will help you know how susceptible you are to having this be a quote addiction. And it's like a 1 out of 10 scale. I think I was a 9, an 8 or a 9, maybe a 10. But the reason I'm bringing that up is the fruit piece. Everyone is different as far as what they can have and what's going to trigger them or not. Some people are fine with they have a normal relationship with fruit. Some people are the other extreme. They can have zero fruit, or they can only have berries, which are a very low sugar fruit. So it really depends on the person. That susceptibility quiz could help you determine that. Tam, when you decide to indulge, it's not as good and not satisfying. What I relate to, of course, not now since I've quit this time, but before when I would go back and forth. I know that I went 6 months one time in like 2010. And I still remember after 6 months, I was out to dinner with a friend at this Italian restaurant. They had this amazing Italian dessert. And I remember eating it and it being amazing. But I do remember over the years things being too sweet. Like once you detox your system and your taste buds, sugar will be way too sweet. And Carol, yes. So the artificial sweetener question, I get this often as well. And Bright Line Eating, it is a book and it's a plan. She also talks about in there, as I said, she's a scientist. I don't know if she did research or just shared it. I believe in that book. But artificial sweeteners do the same thing in the mind that actual sugar does. So she recommends no artificial sweeteners, not even stevia, not even agave, honey, any sort of sweetener is going to do the same thing in the brain, which then can activate the cravings again, which is what we don't want. So, you can do you, but when I work with people in the sugar, in coaching, when we do deep one-on-one coaching and getting support on sugar addiction and breaking free, my question is always, why do you need to sweeten something? I don't use sweeteners because what would I even sweeten? I don't need it. So even that can be a red flag. Wonderful, April. So, I'm curious what is opening up for people. What questions do you have? What ahas are you having? Where do you still feel muddy or unclear? What feels unanswered? And let me know, and we can go in that direction. But as I said, because of who I am and my story and my history, I can speak to those of you who want to eliminate sugar. If you consider yourself, quote, addicted or not, that's fine. But if anybody's like, I'm going to try moderation, or moderation works for me, that's wonderful. And I don't have any guidance on that because I don't know how to do that. And I wish that I did. And, some of you might be in a place where sometimes a part of the journey is that you need to try moderation. And if that works for you, wonderful. And if that doesn't, then you will learn something, and that will be information for you as well. The other thing I want to speak on is this normalization of the consequences, and I'll just say, of sugar addiction. It is so culturally, in society, and as a world human, globally accepted form of addiction. And especially in the last, 30 years, I don't even think 50 years, 30, 40, maybe 50 years, that, and I don't want to get into whatever, but it needs to be said that the biggest companies in the world are the drug pushers of the sugar. And that, combined with our human physiology, which sugar is our fuel. And before modern times, sugar was not, it wasn't processed, and it was scarce, and it was a small confectionery treat. And now we have access to it 24/7. So all of these things have led to this perfect storm of it being a complete and total epidemic in the world, many places in the world, with obesity, diabetes, and it killing people. People literally die from sugar addiction, and yet it's masked under all of these other layers, and it's normalized. Type 2 diabetes should not be a normal thing. It's an epidemic because of all of what I'm talking about. It's not because of just something in the body that happens. It's because of an overconsumption of sugar. And, sugar-related products and white flour, but we're just keeping it really simple here. So the thing is, obesity is epidemic. And so we go around, if you live in countries where that is occurring, of X percentage of people are overweight / obese, it's become normalized. And I can't make blanket statements, and I'd say a lot of it, some of it, most of it is from this sugar issue. And, we can look at then now, children, whatever, I'll be 50 this year. I'm not young anymore. I'm middle-aged. Of course, we had sugar, Of course, as a kid, I loved it. And it was just different back then. And I see, like, I was in the store. I live in Mexico, for those who don't know. I was in the store the other day, and the mom was buying the kid this like orange drink, which is not fruit, and buying them Doritos, and then buying them a yogurt. How many of you think like sweetened yogurt is a health food? No. How many grams of sugar are in these like berry flavored, whatever flavored yogurts? And this kid, was having all of these things. So I'm saying that to say it's become normalized. People getting their limbs cut off because of diabetes. If it is related to diet, if it's caused from diet, we could say the culprit is the sugar addiction. So it's like we have this mental disconnect that those two things aren't related, and again, I can't speak for every situation, but those, where people get type 2 diabetes because of their diet exclusively, that's too much sugar, these are the consequences: early death, having your limbs removed from, neuropathy, and complications from type 2 diabetes. So I just want to get really clear on that. And it doesn't have to be this way, and it's become normal and accepted. Hi, Christy. Yeah, I have lots of experience with cleansing. I am a colon hydrotherapist for 25 years, which means I have performed colonics, cleansing the colon with water. And I've done a lot of work with people on cleansing and detoxing, both like herbally and literally with their colons. If you have a specific question, let me know, or feel free to reach out if you have a question about that. Wonderful, April. Yeah, I mean, if we're not ready, we won't hear it, and that's okay. You'll hear it when you're ready. So glad that you showed up today, April. Kat, I so get you on this. So get you. Thank you so much for sharing this example. Yeah, so for me as a sugar addict, and I don't know if you are, and only you can determine that for yourself, but to me that speaks exactly to this dynamic of I can only, I can have it on a special occasion. You may be able to do that, but again, you want to look at a long period of your life, more than even just 1 year. Look over the past 3 to 5 years. Have you been able to successfully moderate and control your sugar usage over that time? If you did quit for a period, and you have a birthday treat, and then maybe you stay quit for still a period of time, and then now it's a Christmas treat, and then it's like what happens is if you can fit in this dynamic, these periods of abstinence get shorter and shorter because the experiment worked so well. I was able to have, that's what happened to me. So when I quit for 2.5 years, 10 years ago, I still remember this very vividly. I had the flu, and I was staying at my mom's, and my throat was all hot and sore, and I wasn't really hungry. Well, guess what was in the freezer but some mango sorbet, and I was like, well, I'm sick, so I can have this. And I had it, and a month went by, and wow, look, I was able to do it. I was able to have it just one time. Well, if I can do it just that one time, then I can do it again and just have one this time. And then I have it again. Well, that experiment worked so well, I was able to just have it that one time. So then now it's like 2 weeks later, and then it's 1 week, and then then I'm back to every day and every night binging on a pint of ice cream and a bunch of cookie dough every night. That's my story. And honestly, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or a gambler or a shopaholic or a sex addict or a porn addict, that you can just substitute any of your addictions with what I just said. So, totally, Siobhan. Hi, Michelle. Yeah, so I got into colonics because I had chronic constipation as well, and it changed my life. And yeah, and I know people have different thoughts and experiences and what they were told, and you get to do you and trust your inner guidance. Hey, Angela. Hi, Allie. Yeah, so if you can relate to this dynamic of, I've gone this period of time, I can reward myself, or now it will be different, that's a red flag. And again, for those of you who can't relate to much of this conversation, great, I wish I was you, and I'm not, and my sense is many of you also are not. And so in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to get it. It's right here. But basically, you can take this book and substitute sugar or whatever else your addiction is. But there's a page, I'm going to read a quote, a short quote. So this, if you are wondering if you might have an issue, it says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when eating sugar, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably a sugar addict. So I will read that again. If when you honestly want to, you find you can't quit entirely, or if when eating sugar, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably a sugar addict. And I mean, use whatever words feel comfortable for you. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm substituting the word sugar for alcohol. So when you honestly want to, if you have little control over the amount you take, I think that's what it was. Yeah. So if you can't control it, or you can't quit entirely, or once you start, you can't control how much you're having, you probably have an issue. So yeah, April, if you have that book, it could be interesting, especially starting with chapter 3. And in my 12-step work with people, I have helped people, although my primary addiction was alcohol and drugs, I have helped people through the 12-step process, and we would go through the book and just substitute sugar, substitute food if somebody's a food addict, substitute codependency, relationships. So it's a wonderful book, and you can do that. So for those of you that feel this is speaking to you and you're like, okay, I've got to stop, things are becoming clear, I realize like this isn't working, I want to quit again. I want to give you a practice and an exercise that you can take with you. And that is that you write a list, well, not one list, you write 3 lists. And you're going to divide them into red, yellow, and green. And so when I start working with my sugar addiction or sugar freedom coaching clients, this is what we always start with. So it's like a stoplight. Red is stop, yellow is caution, green is go. So you want to start with your red list. So these are the things that if you have them, you have reactivated your sugar addiction or your sugar problem. So these are any foods that you cannot have just one, and you've proven it to yourself over a long period of time that you cannot safely have one at all. For me, those things are cookies, cake, ice cream, candies, cupcakes, pies, all of the yummy things. And these are the things that if you have them, you've, quote, relapsed, or you've reactivated your sugar addiction. So like if it's alcohol or drugs, that would be, if somebody's an alcoholic, that would be any form of alcohol, etc. So this really helps to get clear on, okay, all of those things, if I have them, are going to reawaken the cravings, the withdrawal, the obsession, the compulsion, the addiction in the body, the powerlessness, the unmanageability. So whatever those things are for you. And if you are a sugar addict, everything I mentioned will be on your list as well. Now you can take it further if you have other food issues, and most people have other food issues. It's never just sugar in a vacuum as its own thing, and you have a perfect relationship with every other food. But start where you are. If you can't have pasta, because white flour is white sugar in the body. But I'm just keeping it simple for today's talk, and we're just speaking of sugar. So in my one-on-one coaching, we get into all the individual's preferences and their own issues. So write a list of the things that are your drug foods, and those are off limits. You're on the right path if you're not having those, and you need to reset if you've had any of those. The other list is your green list. So green is your safe foods, which are going to be all the probably boring foods. Vegetables, green vegetables, maybe meats, depending, again, grains, depending on the person. If you know that you've never had a problem with certain fruits, great, put those on that list. But these are things without shadow of a doubt, you're not going to binge on them, or they're not going to set off a binge or trigger the cycle. And then you want to look at the yellow list. So the yellow list is very much individual per person. So again, if I was working with you one-on-one, we would definitely be able to dive into that individually. For you in the group, in this live stream, that's impossible, but I will give some examples. So this could be fruits or certain fruits, and the yellow list is caution. So it could be you're truly undecided, or you're not quite sure if this is an issue. You can put it in the yellow list and experiment and see what happens. It could be certain context. So a great example is, and again, this isn't sugar, but we could use a sugar example being, let's say, so dried fruits, that's going to be an iffy one because it's concentrated sugar. So for some, that's going to be on your red list 100%. I would say it's rarely going to be on somebody's green, that it's just totally safe. I'd say it's going to be on most people's yellow or red. So as an example of it being on the yellow list, raisins on a salad, or dried cranberries, no sugar added cranberries, on a salad, that's going to be a context of a yellow list thing. That doesn't mean that you can have handfuls of it out of the bag. So for some of you, that means it's not going to be in the house, but if you go to a restaurant, you have a salad, it's on there, it's going to be okay. But you don't keep it in the house. Same with nuts. Now that's not sugar, but some people have issues with nuts. For some of you, that might be a total red list thing. For some, it might be, okay, going out to dinner, if it's sprinkled on my food. Cheese, another one. And it might be certain cheeses are going to be like Parmesan cheese. I think many people that would be a green or maybe yellow, but maybe, cheddar or some of the richer cheeses might be a yellow or a red. So again, you can work with this yourself. If you want support on any of this, I want to offer everybody who's here a gifted conversation with me where we could take an hour to slow down on all this, look at specifically what are your issues, what's your biggest challenge in this area of your life, what do you want it to look like, what is a step you can take, and it might be refining this list for yourself, what's your plan moving forward. So if you've never had a gifted conversation with me of any kind, I am offering this to any of you who would like that. If you have had conversations with me, you can reach out and we'll take that on a case-by-case basis. Thank you, April, for the donation. And yeah, popcorn, that's a great one, Kat. That might be red or yellow. Because again, now we're kind of getting more out of sugar, but that's fine because it's eating, right? And it's compulsive overeating. Sugar addiction, any kind of food addiction is compulsive overeating. And again, I'm trying to keep it really straight and narrow for the purpose of this conversation. And I'd say 95% of you, it's not just going to be you have a perfect diet outside of sugar. It's going to be a whole landscape of your entire diet. So in that sense, yes, popcorn could be a yellow, could be a red. I'd say rarely that would be a green food for most people. So if this has been helpful, don't forget to give me a follow here on Insight Timer. You can join my group here, Natalie's Healing Circle, to stay in touch, listen to my meditations. I don't have any specific sugar meditations. Hey, maybe that's a great idea. Stay tuned. Follow me on YouTube where all my replays are, where this is being live streamed as well. Facebook, Instagram, check out my website. You can reach out through all those channels. Yeah, Siobhan, trail mix. I would say if you can relate to being more on the addiction side of things, then trail mix would be a no. Or a yellow, but the things in the mix would be, healthy things that no sugar added, no white flour or refined grain products either. Hi, Michelle. Yeah, so I wonder how long you've been in the live stream, Michelle, because I have talked about kind of some of what you're saying earlier in the conversation. I would invite you to watch the replay. As I said, it's going to be directly available. I mean, it's live right now. As soon as this is over, it'll be uploaded in my YouTube as a replay. So I'd invite you to check out the entire talk. You're nervous about energy levels when your sugar spikes. So to me, if you feel, if you have something going on where you feel your sugar is spiking, I mean, of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not any sort of trained professional with physical health specifically, but for just hearing that to me is a red flag that already there's an imbalance here in your blood sugar system hormonally, that maybe you have some imbalance, because having a sugar spike is not normal, very generally speaking. So everything converts to sugar anyway, so just enjoy tasting it, only limited. Yeah, so I did cover that very deeply earlier on. And again, feel free to reach out. Welcome, Amelie. Hope that this goes well for you. And if this is helpful, let me know. Send me a message if you want to see more of this. I do these sugar freedom talks rarely. And if this is helpful and you want more of it, let me know and I can do more. I mean, it's something I'm passionate about, of course, with my own journey. And I'm just so grateful. I mean, before I quit this last time, it was utter hell. It was a living hell. And I'm so grateful that I haven't had that experience in that way for over 5 years. And so I'm passionate about helping others, if that's here in the live streams or in my one-on-one coaching. Yeah, so I have my own lived experience. If you can relate to me and you want to free yourself, you know, it's possible. If I can do it, you can do it. So glad it was helpful, Kat. Yeah, and for some of you, another next step, if it's possible, getting rid of, detoxing your home. If you have other people that still eat those foods in the house, there's ways you can manage that. Again, that's something I help with in my one-on-one sessions. So let me see, I want to check my schedule as far as live streams. I am going to be shifting my Saturday Night Lives to also have a weekday, or well, they're not Saturday night anymore, they're Sunday morning, but I'm going to be shifting to also have one in the week. So stay tuned for my new schedule. I'll be having still some Sunday morning lives, but also be doing one during the week. So if you follow me, you'll be notified of all of that. Thank you, Angela. Glad to see you. You're welcome, April. Thank you for the donation. If anyone feels this was helpful, I appreciate donations. Kat, this is a very deep question. What do you say to a friend who wants you to eat a piece of cake? We could have a whole live stream on that. I'll just say, like what I said earlier about how this has become so normalized, how this has become a problem and an issue. We instinctually, sugar is our fuel. So there's that piece. Then there's the piece of living in a community and living in a tribe and evolving that way. And now we're in modern living where we don't do that. So there's a lot to be said about the dynamics of being somewhere and somebody offering you something, and we don't have time to go into that right now. So, just to say, of course, refuse it, and just that it makes sense if that feels challenging. And there's different ways to talk about that. So if you really want to know the answer, send me a message. Thank you, Amelie. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. So I will see you all very soon. Stay tuned for my future live streams being scheduled. A simple no thank you. And people have a big challenge with this sometimes, where it's like, well, yeah, just say no. But I like to give validation to all that's underneath that, because there is a lot. So Have a wonderful day. I will see you all soon. Much love and namaste.